In 2019, 34% of divorces were age 50 and above, all that 20, 25 plus year marriages, and 12% are couples that have been together 40 years or better.
Oh my goodness.
Selling the family home that your kids grew up in for 30 years or 20 years, there's
emotion.
Lots of emotion.
Women above the age of 50, divorce rate has doubled since the 1990s. And couples above the age of 65 have tripled the divorce rate since the 1990s.
When you're 20, 30, even 40 going through a divorce, you have years to hopefully make up and accumulate more wealth. When we're older, those years are precious. There are not as many left, and we want to make them count.
Today's episode is brought to you by Security Financial Management.
Welcome back to the Best Advice Podcast, guys. I'm your host, Rob Lavaglio, here as always with Suzanne Sopa, an expert in the field for 25 years now. Suzanne, how are we this morning?
I'm doing fabulous.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
We have a very interesting topic. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, we do.
Today we're here to talk about gray divorce. This has been rising since the Second World War. Gray divorce is when couples above the age of 50 are getting divorced. Women above the age of 50, divorce rate has doubled since the 1990s. And couples above the age of 65 have tripled the divorce rate since the 1990s. Let's get to it. Today's question comes from Christy from Tampa. Christy, what you got for us?
Unfortunately, I'm going through a divorce. I'm 62 and have been a stay-at-home mom for 30 years. Any advice or common mistakes I need to avoid? Hope you guys can spare some guidance.
Thank you, Christy. Suzanne, please take this over. What is a gray divorce?
Gray divorce. You know, it's a good question, and it kind of sounds like it is. You know, as financial advisors, our role is to work what we call a life cycle, that we go with clients through all the different life stages. And, you know, that's your typical wealth accumulation, getting your kids through college and all of that. But one of the things in the life cycle that we're starting to hear about is a gray divorce. So a gray divorce sounds exactly like the word. We're older folks getting divorced. So you have people that are 50s, 60s, 70s, and above getting divorced. These are folks that have had long-term marriages, at least 20 years or better, most of them even 30 years, and they're filing for divorce. And that sounds, wow. But here's the reality.
Right.
When growing up in the 60s and 70s, dating myself, divorce was kind of a stigma. You stay to death do you part. But now it's not so much a stigma. So the kids are gone, they're through college, you're looking at this person, your lifestyle changes, your goals changes, and it's not death do you part. It's, I want to do things to make me happy. So in 2019, they did some statistics. 34% of divorces were age 50 and above, all that 20, 25 plus year marriages.
Wow, yeah.
And 12%, this was shocking, are couples that have been together 40 years or better.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like it would be the opposite for some reason.
No. And if we think about it, I have friends that were 33 years married. But if you look at the celebrities, you got Bill and Melinda Gates, you got Rhea Perlman, Danny DeVito. You have now, it's all in the news, Hugh Jackman and his wife, Deborah Lee Furness. They were, I think, 25, 30 years together. So you're having this interesting phenomenon. It's like, okay, now what? Now what? You want to get divorced, you're older, you've done all this stuff together. How do you unravel it? I mean, the way I look at it, we're in that last part of life. We're in that last maybe 9 innings, that last quarter, that last 10, 15, 20 years. You don't want to go back to work.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you don't want to go back.
I'm trying to retire. I'm trying to retire at 35.
Yeah, there you go. So what do you do? How do you capture that? How do you get that lifestyle that you wanted with that spouse 10, 15 years ago? So in order for that to happen, you really need to, it's almost going back to basics of financial planning. You need to work with a CPA. You need to work with your advisor, put a financial plan together. You need to understand taxes. You need to understand, especially if you were the non-working spouse and you didn't contribute to a 401k.
Yeah.
And what about if there's a pension? How does Social Security benefits look? What happens if you're not 65 and you can't get Medicare? What do you do? So that is, to me, terrifying.
It puts you in a terrible position, too, if you weren't, everyone, when you're, married or, a partnership, you have different responsibilities, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're not the one responsible for the finances and the pensions and the 401ks and the 403bs, and you're 60 now, and that's never been in your bag of responsibilities, that's scary. What do you do? Where does that leave you?
That is true. I always would make a comment. I don't want to be a greeter at Walmart. Not there anything wrong with that. I don't want to be that shopping cart syndrome. It's like, what do you do to protect yourself? So what I really want to do with this series, because it's not like it's a new phenomenon, but as I said, the stigma is gone, and you're looking at this person, and you go, yeah, do I want to do this? And there are things, sometimes there's illnesses, sometimes there's infidelity, there's just a host. But what do you do? So what I'd like to bring on is those experts. I'll talk about the financial planning side, the budgeting side, but bring in a CPA, bring in the estate planning person, maybe bring in a coach to talk you through the emotional part, but bring in those experts that can help you navigate, because selling the family home that your kids grew up in for 30 years or 20 years, there's emotion, lots of emotion. And sometimes you go, well, I want to leave, but I can't. I was not the one that made the money. So I think it's something to look at. I tell folks, when you're 20, 30, even 40 going through a divorce, you have years to hopefully make up and accumulate more wealth. I'm rich, bitch! When we're older, those years are precious. There are not as many left. We want to make them count.
You hear a lot of people, or I hear a lot of people these days, older than usual. What you would hear is like, I want to reinvent myself. We're healthier than we've ever been. We're living longer than we've ever been.
Absolutely.
We've taken a, front seat to how do I live my best life, right?
And that's exactly what's happening.
So don't settle. It's like, why settle now? You
want to live your best life. And I think for many of us, when we get in that last stage, it's like you want to look back. As I say to people, even who are not getting divorced, but are just financial planning clients and clients in general, what's your legacy? What do you want it to look like?
So according to divorce forensic accountant lawyers and advisors, there's 3 of the biggest and most expensive mistakes any women or men make when getting divorced. So me and Suzanne are going to run through that real quick. Suzanne, the first one is going to be the divorce agreement, not reading it all the way through, not knowing the obligations, because it becomes very emotional. You don't want to look at it anymore. Give me some light to that, please.
When you're going through the weeds, the minutia part of it, there is a lot of emotion. And a lot of times, maybe a spouse or an attorney would say, don't worry about it. This is in the agreement. We got you covered. And a lot of things you need to do before that. You need to know your budget. You need to know what it's going to cost for you to live. because that is crucial. Your divorce agreement could have all this stuff and say, okay, you get alimony for 3 years, but you don't get alimony for life. You could have the house, but who's going to help pay for it? So you got to really understand what the agreement says. Have you really worked with somebody to understand the numbers in there? Because once you sign that agreement, you're done.
If you don't fill out obligations because you just threw it away and like this is over, I'm never looking back.
Yeah. I don't know if you'll find out. You have to do your self-discovery, because if somebody's getting a bonus and you don't know about, or stock options or things like that, and it's not written in the agreement, guess what you're not getting?
Whatever was in the agreement. So you miss those obligations, you can be in contempt of court. And that can cause a whole different issue.
It could cause more of an issue, more of expense. It's in that
All
discovery.
that.
So you have to really do your work. And if you're, if you're thinking about this may be your next step, I really would hire the right people and really write down, what is it going to take for you to survive? What do you need? And a lot of people, especially if you were the stay-at-home spouse, you may not know everything the other spouse has. You may not realize the size of the 401k. You may not know they have stock options. You may not know they have a separate bank account or a separate stock account, because you're raising the family. And a lot of times those side accounts just get open because of the situation and life goes on. But you need to know, because once you sign,
very true,
you're done.
So number 2 is make sure to close out every joint bank account, because even if it's in the terms that money is yours from the divorce, if a certain amount of time passes and you have a joint account still and you didn't close that out, then your ex-partner is able to take that or able to use it.
Yeah, and there's a few things on that. So what I would suggest to people is, again, before you're looking to do that, make copies, know the bank accounts, know what's in there, and you have to go over it total. You cannot close the bank accounts online if there's a joint account. You have to go to the bank together in person.
Awkward.
Ugh, this is awkward.
To close it out.
Interesting.
Yes. They want your signatures and ID. And also, if there are credit cards that are joint, you need to take the time. This is the detail stuff, because you are both equally responsible for the debt if your names are on there. So you want to make sure, and you don't want your partner getting to the bank before you're there and clean out the bank account. So again, this is homework and the details, and that you need to understand, okay, I don't have access to that bank account. You need to have access. And you need to do these details. Like I said, you have to physically go to the bank and close it. You cannot do it online. So if somebody says to you, hey, I'm closing the bank account online, I would double check. Chances are they're not.
And then the last one, this is the most common, or the third most common, but the most expensive one. And that is making sure to follow through on your 401k, your 403b, your IRA, your will, and all retirement accounts, right?
Yes. So there's a few things here. So first, a few bullet points here. Number one, depending whose accounts are what, you need to update once a divorce is finalized and they've done a quadro order, update your beneficiaries. Because the stories happen that a person dies and the ex-spouse is on the life insurance, and the new spouse that they have been married to for 10, 15 years gets nothing.
Suzanne, what's a quadro?
It's a qualified domestic relations order that the judge signs up, because if you have a 401k or an IRA and you split it without that, it becomes a taxable event. So the order says spouse of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Could be the female was the winner, as times have changed with that. Mr. Smith gets 50%. So the account gets split. It does not cause a taxable event. The same thing is done with 401ks and also pensions. If the spouse has a pension and when they turn 65, they get $5,000 a month. Guess what the spouse gets? $2,500 a month. So you have
a lot to it. Wow.
You gotta be able to understand that. If there's life insurance, the same thing. You gotta make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. Things are changed. You gotta understand how the money moves. You can't just say, which I've had people do, my wife wants, we're getting divorced. They want half of it. I need the order because it causes taxable event to you, not your spouse.
Awesome. Well, I hope that helps, Christy. If you want to have a personal meeting with Suzanne, I will leave a link in the description here for you. She'd love to talk to you and guide you in any way she can. Remember, folks, the secret to wealth is not what you earn, it's what you keep. Happy days, everybody.
Take care.
This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only and is not intended as personal financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please do your own research and consult a financial advisor as needed.